everyone. My name is Susan Grabsky, and I'm the Executive Director of the Lawrence History Center. On behalf of our wonderful Board of Directors, staff, and volunteers, I welcome you to the 2018 Eartha Dengler History Awards ceremony. Tonight we're honoring the Greater Lawrence Young Professionals Network, and we couldn't be more proud of that. This year differs from previous years where we've honored individuals or groups of individuals. We've never honored an organization as we are tonight. Last year, we honored 4 people. Joe Bella, Jim Beauchesne, who is here, Linda Ziegenthaler, who's also here, her husband, Jörg Ziegenthaler, and we honored them to celebrate the people, celebrate them for helping us get to our 40th year. This year, we're honoring a group of young professionals as we celebrate our actual 40th anniversary. And we hope that this group of individuals will get us through the next 40 years, at least.
We can do it.
You can do it? Okay. With their talent and their leadership and their respect for the history and future of the city of Lawrence. I'd like to thank our host committee that helped us with spreading the news about the event. They're listed in your program, but I'd like to name them, and if you can just raise your hand when I do so. Sarah Gotsky, right here. Sarah works for Apple and has volunteered at the History Center for quite some time now, and we were delighted that she wanted to be part of this event. Patty Fernandez from Pike School, Patty's here. Mary Jo Griffin, who is a volunteer at the History Center and an IT analyst by profession. Dariana Guerrero, who works up at Phillips Academy now, among other projects. Gerald Hayes, a teacher at Lawrence High School. There he is in the back. Derek Mitchell, the Executive Director of the Lawrence Partnership, in the back. George Richardson, who's a photographer and a radio host locally. There he is. And Mayor Dan Rivera, who unfortunately had a conflict this evening and couldn't be with us, but he sends his very best wishes to all of Glippan. This year has inspired many people and organizations to sponsor our event so that we may honor the efforts and accomplishments of Glippan in a way that they so deserve. And it's also, while we're honoring this group of wonderful examples in our community, it's also helping the history and helping support our mission to collect, share, preserve, and animate the history and heritage of Lawrence and its people. The sponsors are listed here on this board in your program, and since the print materials went to the printer, we have 3 new sponsors. Patricia Jassain, who's a predecessor of mine, and I couldn't be happier that she's here with us tonight, and her husband, Eugene DeClerc, who was really instrumental in helping us, well, they both were instrumental in helping us do our public health symposium in April. They've joined us as founders level sponsors. Richard Purinton as a research level sponsor. Richard is a former, not a former, he's a Dengler Award winner in 2012. He was awarded that. And a Glippan member, Marquise Victor, who is the director of Elevated Thought. He regrets not being able to be here tonight. He's sponsoring at the historic level, friend level, but he is finishing the work on his new space in the Everett Mill on the 1st floor. They're having an open house there tomorrow night at 6 p.m. If you can stop by. I've been peeking in the windows as I leave work every day, and it looks incredible, so if you can stop by, that would be great. I'd also like to thank Wimper Barahona of the History Center Board and his students. If you guys can raise your hands. From the Lawrence International High School. They helped us this evening with directing us about where to go outside as we approach the event, and they're at all of our events without fail, so we thank them for all of their help. I'd like to thank the Wobblies, of course, for their music outside. That was incredible. Perfect setting. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to thank the Lawrence Public Library, Jessica Valentin as their director, their custodial staff, Franklin in particular. What they did with that outdoor space was incredible, with mowing and hedge work and power washing the cement. Really, we're so touched that they were able to prepare the space in the way that they did for us. And I, for one, thought it was incredible out there, and can't wait to go out for dessert and coffee out in the evening. So, thank you. Speaking of Jessica Valentin, Jessica would like to say a few words on behalf of the library. Do you want to bring here or hold it?
Good evening, everyone. So I'm just going to continue the thank yous. I think it's really important to recognize who's here to support tonight, but also, thank you first and foremost to the Lawrence History Center for dreaming big and thinking of coming to the library for something like this very important event. Just to recognize some of the other folks in the room, thank you community members for being here from all walks. I just want to recognize we have a couple of city councilors here, Philadelphia and Mark LaPlante. We appreciate you, and school committee member Stephanie Infante. Thank you very much for being here. When we talk about public libraries these days, we think a lot about the space itself and what it could be, what it's been in the past, and what it's turning into. And this right here is a really big example of what it could be, right, and what it can continue to be. So I am very appreciative of the Lawrence History Center for approaching the library, and to you, Susan, and Pamela Yamin, for just thinking big and thinking outside of the box and thinking outside of the building. Isn't it incredible, right? I think the lights went up. So when we go outside for dessert, we're going to see those beautiful lights on the trees. How amazing is that? Thinking of transforming public libraries, one of it is thinking of it as a space outside of books, as a space for the community to come together. It's a hub of lifelong learning, but it can also be a place of arts and culture, right? So one thing I want to invite you to, in addition to Elevated Thought, this event tomorrow, I'm on the board of that. Next Thursday, we're going to launch an art gallery here at the library on the second floor. That's very important, not just because we're so proud of the space and what it could be, but it belongs to the community, and I can't stress that enough. That art gallery will be Lawrence's art, another one of Lawrence's art galleries. We welcome all local artists to please sign up and present your work here. We're going to reach out to the Lawrenceville schools to have the student present their work there. But next Thursday at 6 p.m., please join us on the second floor of this library. There's this beautiful round wall, and what you will see there is the very first exhibit, which is going to be an intergenerational exhibit. Old and new, and what we have there is Michelle Collado, who's a recently graduated student from Lawrence High School. She graduated a couple of weeks ago. She'll be presenting her beautiful work that was just auctioned off at New Paint, was also featured in the Eagle Tribune. Her work is incredible. That's going to go alongside Bernie Greenside's portraits. 94-year-old young man that's a member of the senior center. So we're trying to think outside of the box. We worked with the Lawrence Senior Center to come up with this concept, and that's going to launch it. Please come back to the library. Also, just want to recognize one of our trustees members are here, Jay Dow. Thank you for always supporting the public library. He's also a former city councilor. And last but not least, thank you to Glippin. It's when I saw who was going to be receiving an award this year. I've been to this event a few years now. I was really excited about that because a few years ago I moved to California and I thought I was going to be there forever. And then I heard about my city kind of bustling and organizing, and I was like, I want to be a part of that. When I moved back, one of the first experiences I had that connected me back into my community was with Glippin. So I thank these guys for, our co-founders here, for creating Glippin and creating a space and a network that was able to bring me back into my community, but connect me in a beautiful way that led me here, really, to be able to work and grow in the community I was born and raised in. So thank you very much to Glippin. It is well-deserved to all the current and past board members and all of the members of it. We really appreciate you, and I'll just give it back to Susan. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Jess. I think the work that Jess has done across the just over 18 months, I think, she hasn't been here that long, has been extraordinary. The library is now very visible in the community. She's engaging families. I have yet to go to, is it Donuts with Dad? She said I could come. And I haven't gone. But just all different types of programs to engage people at all levels, all ages, genders, wherever you are, she's meeting them where they're at and creating, along with her team, programs to engage the community. So I really commend her for that work. The History Center began giving this award back in 1998 to spotlight the efforts and accomplishments of outstanding leaders who work to bring development, opportunity, and prosperity to Lawrence. Sadly, Eartha Dengler passed away in 2014 on March 8th. 36 years to the day of founding the organization as Immigrant City Archives. And the first collection that she collected were the records of the YWCA, records of immigrant women, their families, and since then, thanks to the tenacity of so very many volunteers and staff who've gone on to collect, we're estimating over 30,000 photographs, nearly 800 digitized oral histories with personal accounts going back as far as the 1912 Bread and Roses strike. We've collected organizational records, mayoral records, church records, urban renewal, public health, on and on. There's no area of any school curriculum or any area of research that we don't have content to support. A lot of archives can't say that. The city of Lawrence is unique as a planned industrial city. It's small enough to provide a really good picture of whatever subject you're looking at. And we're really proud of that, and just really proud of having made it all the way to 40 years doing what we do. We have some previous Dengler History Award recipients in the room. I'd like you to raise your hands. Jimbo Shane. Yay. Linda Ziegenthaler. Richard Purinton. Gary Seidel. Lou Bernieri. Rich Gorham, did he sneak in? He was playing. And Kay Frischman. So Glippen members, you're in very, 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 very good company. And tonight we honor you for the following reasons, as well as the others that you'll hear from speakers that follow me. Nearly a decade ago, the founders of Greater Lawrence Young Professionals Network set out to create something that any city wishing to thrive in the 21st century must have: a lively community of young professionals that is motivated to live, work, and play locally, and looks for ways to invest their time and talents in the city, from hosting networking events and community volunteer efforts to facilitating high school resume workshops and career mentorship night. Glippen has increased the level of young professional engagement across the Lawrence community. Its members are playing a vital role in ensuring that Lawrence has an energetic, cultured, skilled, and passionate leaders that the future calls for. And they are helping to ensure that the future generations can take as much pride in the history and culture of Lawrence as these young professionals do today. That's a big statement that they helped us put together to encompass all that they do. The History Center, of course, is concerned about the history, but we're very concerned about the future. And Glippen is helping us stay in business as a History Center. So with that, I'd like to introduce the daughter of the late, great Eartha Dengler.
Well, thanks so much for that great introduction. Yeah, when I was invited to talk to you, Susan said, well, how would you like to be introduced? And I said, well, as the daughter of the late, great Eartha Dengler, of course, thinking it was a joke, but it's on my name tag. It's absolutely the truth. Well, and Susan further said, just talk about what would Eartha think, you know, so WWET, what would Eartha think? Well, first of all, she'd be very happy to be in a library. Eartha and I started college the same year, and we were 30 years apart, but didn't stop her. And she got a job so she could buy a car, so she could get to UMass. It was not an easy task. And so having a library that has this kind of community spirit and engagement would make her heart sing. She'd be amazed that here we are 40 years later, because there were a lot of times when it was doubtful. It was difficult, and it was precarious, and it was occasionally very strange. And I see a number of her colleagues. They're not young professionals, they're a lot of old broads, really. And a lot of them are here, and I would love it if they would just stand up, because honestly, as much as we love the young professionals, if these old broads and their mates hadn't come to the fore and stuck it out, we wouldn't be here today. So if you can stand, or just raise your hand and let us know who you are so we can celebrate you. Nobody wants to be an old broad. What's the matter with you? This is a distinction. Come on. Well, they know who they are, and if they look like they're guilty, yes. Yes. If they look guilty, they probably are. Let me just say that. And you know, the other thing, I was thinking about Eartha and her own coming to America. She came in 1951. I was born in 52. And she was born in 1922. So she grew up in a tyrannical world that was Germany. And it was a very difficult time to grow up, and it was, she lived there through the chaos and horror of World War II. And one thing she brought with her was an absolute passion for democracy. And I would say to young professionals, and especially seeing all of her troublemaking allies in the room, you know, if you have a career in mind, you have to have a civic life that is decent and civil and democratic. And I would just invite you to not only pursue your careers with great vigor, but to pursue your civic engagement. That was the inspiration for the Immigrant City Archives, was that simple idea, and her connection to those girls and families, and her ability to pursue it rather doggedly, and blind to all obstacles sometimes. Well, not blind, she was aware of them, she just chose to ignore them. And she used her accent to great effect. You know, she would say to people, not, would you volunteer, but like inverting it like a German speaker would, like, you would volunteer. And in that miscommunication was a command that most people responded to. So that's the other thing I would say, just no job is too small. If it fits with your passion and it ignites your heart, go do it. It doesn't matter if it's cleaning a closet or driving or doing whatever it is, just do it and take that next step, because it's a lot of baby steps to get where you're going. And don't be afraid to do anything that's legal. Maybe even things that aren't totally legit, if necessary. The other thing I think she would feel is just thrilled to see that the Lawrence, the lights are on, you know, it's so great. And there were so many years where the lights were not on, and there was not that spirit of hopefulness and possibility and commitment and energy and make it happen. And it's a lot of the people in this room, and particularly the honorees for tonight, and the honorees that are here with us and those that aren't, who have really dug deep, worked long and hard, and have continued to believe in the possibility of Lawrence as a gateway for new Americans and a place to call home and a place to put your heart and soul to work. So thank you so much for honoring my mother.
Before I introduce the next speaker, I just want to embarrass someone in the room. At our 30th anniversary, we have Jess Andors, the most beautiful woman in pink, if you can wave your hand. She received the Dengler History Award 10 years ago, can you believe? 10 years ago. And she still continues to do incredible work in the city at the head of Lawrence Community Works and many, many other groups that she's a part of and engaged with. So thank you, Jess, for coming. Our next speaker is Derek Mitchell. He's the Executive Director of the Lawrence Partnership. If you could come right in.
Howdy. So my name is Derek Mitchell. Thanks for inviting me to be here. It seems so appropriate to be in the museum, or I'm sorry, in the library. It's an historic building. We're here to celebrate the History Center, but this is a building and an institution that I think some people would think is too old, too archaic, right? It's a history that maybe is not worth preserving, but it's a building that as we speak, it's being breathed new life into, right? New purpose is being sought, and it's not because of the building, right? It's because of the people in the building. It's because of Jessica. It's because of the vision of Jessica. It's because of the young people that come into the building. And so I think it's so apropos that we're here tonight in the library. I think it's so appropriate that the History Center hosted this event here. And I think, you know, it fits the theme that Glippen, similarly, is really a movement of young people, right? And by young, I put myself in that category as I, you know, recognize my own balding spot. I still am a young professional, self-identified, but it's a lot of people that have a vision for the community of this city, this historic city, this institution that some people, if you walk outside of Lawrence, will say, Lawrence's best days are in its past, right? I think that those of us that work in this community recognize that's not the truth. Right? We are still building, we're still, you know, working towards crescendo, and I think that we will continue to innovate because of the work of folks like Glippen, right? And I think you guys as an institution, I think you guys as individuals have breathed new life into the city the same way that Jessica has breathed new life into this institution. The same way, you know, that the History Center has breathed new life into what it means to be Lawrence, right? And so, you know, I think as we celebrate not only Eartha, who I'm learning about more and more, right, and awesome remarks, I think we're celebrating what has preceded us, but we're also celebrating what's in front of us. You know, a wide stage that I was talking with earlier today, who goes by the name of Gary Seidel, allowed me to coin this term, but the History Center is really innovating by not only recognizing people that are preserving history, but people that are making history, right? And so I think the History Center has done a great service to this broader community, and bringing us here to the library. I think it's done a great service in recognizing Glippen. And I think it's done great service by recognizing that we're so much stronger by building on the past and you know, all those individual examples of hardship like Eartha, of perseverance like Eartha, of innovation like Eartha. But those are lessons that we are applying every day. Those are lessons that are really going to be prominent in our future. And so you know, when I was looking back on Glippen, you know, when Glippen was founded, I think it was 8 years ago, you know, we were still 2 years before the City of the Damned article, right? We were still a year before the receivership, you know, but our unemployment rate was still high 14%, right? This was still a community that needed support. It needed vision. It needed people that wanted to choose Lawrence, right? And y'all have chosen Lawrence. You know, for the most part, you know, Glippen and many others, y'all went off to college. Y'all could have stayed in Boston, Y'all could have stayed in California. Jessica, you didn't have to come back. But you did, right? You came back to Lawrence. And I think that the work that we see underway right now is because of those decisions that people made, right? I think that, you know, even the organization I get to be involved with, the Lawrence Partnership, we are a direct result of those decisions. You know, and when I think of what will happen 8 years hence, my God, like your imagination could go wide with how far this community will continue to grow, so long as folks continue to make those decisions to choose Lawrence, to be involved in Lawrence, right? You know, and you know, Jessica, and while the timing was not intentional, I wish to God we could have taken claim for it being intentional, but this Why Lawrence campaign that we're putting together featured Jessica Valentin in a video yesterday that Sabrina Baggio is really the mastermind of. But take a look at it, because that, like so many other decisions we're making, that is retelling a narrative in our community, and it's not just telling the story of the Lawrence that was, or the Lawrence that is, but that's also telling the Lawrence that will be. And Glippen, you guys have really been the point of that spear, right? So continue the good work. The History Center, y'all are super smart for being just past the point, and you know, being still part of you know, the spear that gets all the way into the heart. So really excited and proud to be here tonight. Thrilled to be involved with this community, and really, really proud to call myself a Laurentian, although from afar. But congrats to Glippen, congrats to the History Center.
I'd like to invite Janeda Tapia up to the podium. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. You know, when I got asked to speak, I have joked, why me? I'm not the most PC person in the world. I don't know if you want me to speak in a public setting. And then, you know, talking to Pavel and Quinn, why not me? And I think that's what Glippen is, right? Like, why not us? Just to give you a bit of a background, my mom immigrated to Lawrence. In '92, she settled down, and by '95, we were in the stadium projects, which actually ended up being a blessing. My mom always says I raised a teacher and a nurse in the projects. So, and just that narrative is so powerful. And I was very aware, as I was being raised in Lawrence, of the negative and deficit narratives that were out there regarding my community. I'll give you one example. I had an AT&T scholarship at the end of freshman year at a math and science program. And I remember meeting a couple people there, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm from Lawrence, da da da. And a young man whose name I still remember was like, oh, so you go to Central High School, right? And I'm like, no, I go to Lawrence High. So that idea that somehow intelligence and, you know, scholarships and, weren't available or weren't seen. So I knew that I wanted to come back to my city from very young. A lot of it is, you know, my mom lives in the projects. Where the hell am I going to take her? Like, this is home. A lot of it was that it is an amazing community of first generation or early immigrants, or you know, even second generation, that create a community within a community. And one of the goals was with coming back is there was the opposite narratives, that if you somehow made it, you did not come back. So part of your status was not coming back to Lawrence, like, oh, I really made it because I'm not back here, right? When I did come to Lawrence and settle down in 2006 after college, one of the things I realized, it was very lonely for me. I was the only, at UMass Lowell, I was the only Latina that graduated from the literature department. I had entered the teaching field at that moment, and I was blessed that Diane Dominic Burgos was the principal of the Math Science and Technology High School, which at that point they had split up the high schools under different names. And she had hired me. And I was like, wow, I'm gonna be a teacher. Gotta help those kids. So it was interesting because it was also the last year we used the old Lawrence High School. So there was a staggered system where, you know, the poor 10th to 12th graders came at 7 a.m. and left at 1. And the 9th graders would come at 9:25 and leave at 4:30 because it was that overpacked. There were about 3,000 kids in a building that only fits about 1,800, right? So I had kids like sitting in the heaters. There were basement rooms that had partitions to create 2-3 classrooms. I mean, honestly, it was a fire hazard, let's be honest. And it wasn't, I don't think, a learning environment, to be very honest with you. And if you were a new teacher, you were stuck with the 9:25 to 4:30 schedule, right? It's like you have to work. It was around that time that I started hearing whispers about Glippen. And then I reconnected with Pavel and Quinn, and I knew Pavel indirectly. He had been friends with a cousin of mine, and they were a year behind me from high school. So, you know, they're like harassing me, come join us, like, you know, we need to network. I had never even heard about networking. I had to look it up in a dictionary. I'm like, I kind of know what that means, but I don't know what the heck they're talking about. So even the concept of networking, building off each other's strengths, creating a community, and also most importantly, how do we create new paths within the city, right? And I think this is where it gets interesting. I kind of want to highlight the woman of Glippen, because once I was in Glippen, I realized that some of the badasses were the women. I met Glenny's there, and I met Patty, and both of them, I'm like, because I felt I was the only young of course, you know, you're 21, 22, I'm the only one. But I met 2 other young women that were young professionals, and that was impactful to me. And they were not in the same field that I was either. So here we are, and kind of learning from them, seeing them create some of the programming. At that point, we were bringing in the resume and some of the career nights into the high school. So Quinn and I would have it like in our classrooms, not necessarily with permission, but you know, the principals always backed us up. And then that was what really hooked me in, to be very honest with you. I had never had female mirrors that were of the same age. It was always older women that I looked up to, whether it's my mother, my tia, whoever. So to have other young professionals that were women was very inspiring to me, as I myself was 21, 22. And getting older, because I'm now 35, I don't know if I qualify for Glippen. But then I also worked when Pavel and Quinn both had to let go of Glippen a little bit. And as they were transitioning out, I worked under the guidance of Francina and Liz, who both brought in different perspectives, different fields of knowledge into what Glippen is, right? And evolved it to another level. So that was very interesting and a learning experience for me. And then I would end with the fact that, you know, now you have Awila and Kenya, who I know from high school, and they're kind of taking that baton along with others to keep going forward and expanding it past a vision that I don't think Pavel and Quinn really visualized. It's sustained itself. That's how amazing it's been. And it has been sustained by the people who come back, that are Laurentians. It has sustained itself by our narrative of not only do we want to give back, we want to live here. Like, that is a sign of our status. There's a pride in living in Lawrence and working here as well. Or even if we work outside of here and having our homes, right? So I wanted to highlight that because I was thinking last night, and I'm like, you know, it was the woman that kept me involved for as long as I was. And I see it now at the way it has evolved, and it's young women again, right? And I think with a lot of social movements, women, not to be feminist, but they are behind a lot of the social movements, and I don't know if they're as recognized. So I wanted to highlight that in my speech as far as where it started with the vision and where a lot of the women have taken it, and hopefully keep evolving it for other generations who come back. One of the things I think about is, why did I come back? life in Lawrence can be hard, and it can be great at the same time. I think there is a status quo in the city, at least especially in 2006 when a lot of us were coming back. And there was a push and pull between the old guard and the new guard. And I think there always is. But you know, there was a marked difference between the old guard and the new guard. A lot of Glippen members looked like the community. And because it's a city of immigrants, the city has been really good about evolving all the time. And in that evolution, I want to highlight that senior year of high school, I don't know if anyone remembers this, but I graduated in 2001. They used to make you do community service. Do you guys remember that? I actually did a year at the city archives. And it was then that I realized how closely related our narratives of immigrants into this new city was. To see old photos of Essex Street, to see how it had evolved, even the names, the signs, how it demonstrated, you know, whether it's Tripolis or Pollo Típico, like how food demonstrates the shift that is constantly happening in a city of immigrants like Lawrence is, that's really, I think, the first time I became woke, right? Because that's the new term. And it was exciting to see that people cared about keeping it alive. Because I grew up in the 90s here, and if you know anything about the city, there was such a deficit narrative that the fact that people found things exciting and worth and valuable of the city to keep alive was very important. Fast forward, my sister's 10 years younger than me. She actually worked at the Lawrence History Center with Amila for 2 summers. And that was her moment. And so I think there's a lot of connections that we have that we don't realize until we get a little bit older. And Glippen tries to make those connections more evident. It tries to take advantage of those connections in the way that not only does it connect people, but let's connect efforts. Let's not all fight the same fight, let's all unite and fight one fight. And what's exciting about it too is that it becomes in different fields. I know people who are in the business field that I met through Glippen, nonprofits, teaching, politics. And what I realized is that what has been exciting about being involved with Glippen is, if you look at Lawrence right now and the renaissance that I feel we're in, a lot of it has been because of young professionals coming back and leading different fields, whether it's the arts, whether it's nonprofits and education, and even the Lawrence History Center and Bread and Roses, and how things have really livened up, right? And the library is a perfect symbolic space to have our event tonight. It really is symbolic of the beauty that's already there, but most importantly, the beautiful steps that we take forward as we revitalize the city, as we try to empower our youth, as to not only is it worth it to stay, but please stay, right? And the last thing I'll say regarding Glippen is, and one of the things that I know Quinn and Abel has always been purposeful about is the importance of networking. I grew up in a social status that we didn't really understand the concept. We just called it chilling. Oh, I'm just chilling with my friend, right? But you know, the importance of networking between different partnerships throughout the city and actually having things come out of it. And that's what I've seen through Glippen. I've seen events come out of it. I've seen people decide to stay in the city because of it. I've seen people start nonprofits because of it. And I've been blessed to see, you know, former students now take the mantle, and that means I'm getting a little bit too old. But you know, learning from them and the expertise that they bring to Glippen and the city. So I'm actually excited. I hope that it goes forward for 25 more years. We'll be around helping it go around. And definitely thank you to the Lawrence History Center for acknowledging the work of just so many men and women that have decided that Lawrence is not the city of the damned, but it's actually our city of beauty and our city of community. So thank you, everyone.
I'd like to call up Sarah Morin from the Board of Directors of the Lawrence History Center. She's also a GLIPN member, and she's going to lead a pop-up portion to meet the members of GLIPN. Let's go with that one. You can walk.
Hi everyone. As Susan said, I'm on the board of the Lawrence History Center. And when we were thinking about a great way to showcase the members of GLIPN and the young professionals, we thought to ourselves, why not hear it from themselves, straight from them. So I'm hoping that the members of GLIPN will be able to help me out a little bit. There are so many people here that have helped in the past 40 years bring the Lawrence History Center to where it's been. And you guys are really just the future. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to reassure them that the next 40 years in Lawrence is going to be a really great time, and we are going to do the best that we can do to make the city the best it possibly can. So I was wondering if you guys could possibly share a little bit about the projects that you're working on right now. That way we can let the audience know what you guys have been up to. Anyone want to start?
Good evening. My name is Kenya Estevez. I was born and raised here in Lawrence. Funny story, Miss Tapia, Janita. She was never directly my teacher in high school, but I still knew who she was, and she took the time to get to know us, and just having her presence at school was really important to me personally, because it was seeing someone like me in a position like that. So I'm really thankful that I got to hear your speech tonight. So again, my name is Kenya. I am a clinician at Family Services of the Merrimack Valley here in Lawrence. I got my master's in 2016 from Boston College in mental health counseling. As we all know, emotional wellness is a very hard topic to talk about in our society, and especially in the Latino community. So when I left to college, it was my goal to come back. So when I did my bachelor's and my master's back to back. So I spent 6 years away, pretty much. So when I was coming back, I felt a little bit lost, a little bit lonely. So GLIPN was kind of like me reaching out and looking for a community. So when that happened, GLIPN became a little bit more than that, and I got involved in some projects that we've had, for example, like Read Across America Day, which we had this year, and other projects that are I'm blanking on right now. So, did I miss anything? Okay.
Hi everyone, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Eartha Dengler Awards, also from Lawrence. I've been in GLIPN for about 2 years, almost 3 years. I decided to reach out to Babette and Quinn because I knew that when I graduated from Clark University, I wanted to come back and help out in the community, especially because of, after 4 years being deprived of Lawrence, you don't realize how much important it is, especially your family members and your friends back at home, and the food. The food, man, so deprived of that. So I'm the treasurer for GLIPN. Just started doing that this year. Adoneli and I are working with the Lawrence Summer Fund. We're planning for a networking event that's happening in July. So definitely make sure that you are looking at our website and also our Facebook group, so you guys can check that out. And then also I am in the process of transitioning over to Brown University next week, so I'll be pursuing my master's there. And then hopefully, once I'm done with that and the fellowship program that I have to do for Brown University, I'll come back to Lawrence and continue the work that we're doing here. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Adoneli. I've been with GLIPN for almost a year, like Aurita. I am a social worker. I worked in Lawrence for about 3 years doing social work, and now I'm in Chelsea. Like she mentioned, we're working with the Lawrence Summer Fund for an event that we're having in July. I'm also part of the summer program fund, a board member there. And I'm excited to be here, and I'm glad that we were awarded the award.
Hi everyone, my name is Francina and I am a former president of GLPN. Right now, I don't live in Lawrence, unfortunately. I'm doing consulting work for Boston Public Schools, so trying to make sure that they do get people who look like the students in the classrooms. And although I am not living here, as I said before, I am looking to connect with other Laurentians and other young professionals in the city of Boston and beyond, so trying to create a smaller GLPN to have that feel and a sense of community that we so long for. Thank you.
Alright, so thank you guys so much for sharing your story. For me, I also am a young professional in this area. I went to Salem State, and then I got my master's from Harvard when it came to museum studies, and as soon as I came back from all of that, I said there has to be a way for me to reach out to Lawrence. This town, this city has so much history, and for me personally, my family is multicultural, and I have a lot of history when it comes to immigration. And to me, that meant so much. So when I got my master's in museum studies, I said there has to be some place that I can volunteer and use this new knowledge for. And thankfully, Amita and Susan welcomed me with open arms and let me volunteer with their collections. I'm now a board member, and I'm so thrilled to be able to help you guys out. So it's really great to be a part of this. So right now, I'd really like to have Yadira Betances come up, and Pavel and Quinn, if you guys wouldn't mind coming up here. We do, Yadira would like to say a few words, and then we'd like to present you guys with something.
So there's a couple others coming over.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I just want to say that it's really appropriate to be giving the Eartha Dengler History Award today on Flag Day, because America and Lawrence has opened the doors for us, myself included, an immigrant, so we can become whatever we want to be. Especially you guys who are young professionals in your respective areas. I've seen many of you born, like
Lawrence General Hospital, 1986.
I have seen others like Pavel grow up. I met you when you were what, 6, 7?
Yeah, so 6 ago.
Well, now I'm telling people my age. Huh? And I know.
That's my name and she loves me.
I remember also when he was born. And I know his whole family. Francina I got to know later on, but she's wonderful. And I'm very, very proud of you. I'm very proud of your accomplishments.
Teamwork. Community.
I'm old-fashioned. This is new to me. I am very, very proud of you and all the accomplishments that you have done to make our city better. Again, in your respective kind of work. And I feel like you're an inspiration to the next generation. You know, to look at people that look like us and who have wonderful jobs like you guys. I want my children to look up to you.
Thank you.
And as a board member of the Lawrence History Center, we decided to honor members of GLPN as emerging leaders and builders of the city's history. And that's why we're honoring you today.
year we do honor, we do give a gift to our honorees, and because you guys are the future and we do house the past, we decided to merge the two together. So this is an archival box. I've been assured, I've checked it out, it is completely, perfectly preserved in here. This is for you. It is the Glippen Greater Lawrence Young Professionals Network box. It will be housed at the Lawrence History Center. You guys have your own extension. Everything that you do, you're going to be making history. And any history that you make in this city will now go in this box, and we will be happy to preserve it. We started your collection for you, believe it or not. So in here we have, let's see, we have proclamations from Nikki Songus and the mayor. This one right here is from the mayor. It says, be it known that I, Daniel Rivera, mayor of the city of Lawrence, and on behalf of the residents of the city of Lawrence, Massachusetts, by and through this proclamation, hereby honor, recognize, and celebrate the Greater Lawrence Young Professionals Network, and hereby state the follow. Whereas the Greater Lawrence Young Professionals Network has actively and continually engaged in the city of Lawrence since the early 2000s, after a group of college graduates returned to their community only to encounter a vacancy of opportunities for professional networking and the enrichment of young individuals. And whereas the Greater Lawrence Young Professionals Network strives to build and support with a variety of professional fields, provide enriching opportunities to young professionals, advocacy for community improvement and development of local businesses, and mentoring for Greater Lawrence youth. Yeah, I'm running out of steam.
Whereas the Greater Lawrence Young Professionals Network plays an integral role not only in the lives of young professionals in our city, but to the community at large by promoting collaboration and professional development, leading to the stimulation of the growing economic development in Lawrence. And whereas the Greater Lawrence Young Professionals Network is being honored by the Lawrence History Center with the 2018 Eartha Dengler Award for outstanding leadership in the effort of bringing development, opportunity, and prosperity in Lawrence. Now, therefore, I, Daniel Rivera, Mayor of the City of Lawrence, and on behalf of the residents of the City of Lawrence, Massachusetts, honor, recognize, and celebrate the Greater Lawrence Young Professionals Network.
We also have Nikki Songus, if you guys want to throw that in there as well.
There's a separate
So there's a separate one from Nikki Songus as well. I'm abbreviated. Congratulations to you guys. It's not quite as long, but still. And also in this box we have tonight's program and
a phone.
not my phone. We started our collection, but now we hope that you guys and the future of Glippen will be able to make history, and it'll be preserved here in the Lawrence History Center.
The certificate from Nikki Songus. It comes from the U.S. House of Representatives. Certificate of Special Congressional Recognition presented to the Greater Lawrence Young Professional Network for receiving the 2018 Eartha Dengler History Award in recognition of their dedication and service to the young professionals and business community of Greater Lawrence. Signed by Nikki Songus.
Approved by unanimous bipartisan support. So first, so we're gonna do this Oscar style, right? Pretend we all made a movie together. Let's take turns. So like, prepare the wrap-up music. So first of all, I think we have to revisit the bylaws and make sure that we all watch what we post on Twitter now, because there's a record here. All right, so first I just want to thank Susan on behalf of all of us. Susan, Sarah, Amita, everyone on the board, Pam. Thank you so much. Jessica Valentin, there you are. Huge shout out to you for everything you're doing here. This is awesome. awesome. Like, so I've lived in Lawrence all my life. I've never seen, you know, with respect to everyone who's ever worked in the library, I'm sure everyone has done great work, but I've never seen so much activity at the Lawrence Public Library. So shout out to Jessica. I also just really quickly want to say, I also have a few role models in the room. So Jessica Anders, one of the reasons you're one of my role models, and I haven't really told you this, but is because you're so darn humble, and I just love that about you. And you're like my role model for humility. You know, for everything that you've accomplished in life, and everything that you've been through, and all the great source of knowledge and experience that you are. You just carry yourself as you're just like one amongst el pueblo. You know, and I just love that. And so. Also, Yadira, I never told you this. There you are. I'm a writer now. Well, actually, I have something that should be published soon. So I don't know if I have to wait till I'm published before I can call myself that. Okay, so I'm not a writer yet, but hopefully I'll be published soon. I'm also working on another manuscript right now. So maybe I'll be a writer soon, and that's why I have so much respect for people who are writers. And Susan, you too, I know you're a writer. I just want to let everybody know, I actually cited Susan in one of my papers fall semester. I'm doing a doctorate at UVM right now, and Susan was just cited by me. So yes, we stand on the shoulders of giants right now. We have so many people who I respect and who deserve so much respect who have received this award, and it's just so humbling and such an honor to be kind of like seen as somebody who can be considered, or a group of people who can be considered as having such impact. I don't know that we've had as much impact as the previous recipients, but hopefully we can continue to work to that level of awesomeness. So one thing that I just wanted to say is there are a lot of young professionals who couldn't be here because young professionals work, and professionals, a lot of the people who were originally involved are starting to have families and crazy responsibilities. You know, I still yet to have kids, but I understand. You know, people are busy, but they all sent their regards, and you know, like Marquise Victor actually went far enough to, like, he couldn't be here physically, but he actually donated just to like show that he wanted to be here. So every time I go around outside of Lawrence, I'm so impressed by how many people have connections with Lawrence. I was just in a random bar in downtown Burlington, Vermont the other day, and there was a gentleman who attended Bryant McIntosh College. Raise your hand if you've heard of Bryant McIntosh College. Right, so there's a difference between the people who just raise their hands and the people who So I think it was shut down in the 70s. I've never heard of it until this. Was that? Right, we're in the building where Robert Frost used to live? Right.
You know, the school was.
Okay, he used to teach there. All right, so, see, I know history, man. So, Brian McIntosh, so it's just crazy how I'm sitting in a bar with a random, we're next to each other, we start talking. He asked me where I'm from. He's like, oh, Lawrence, Massachusetts. I did not expect him to know. And he was like, also, like, when I go to the beach, or I rent a beach house like at Salisbury Beach, everybody there is like people who lived in Lawrence, you know, decades ago. So I guess the point is, the suburbs around Lawrence, and Lana Barber talks a lot about this, is like people who all came to Lawrence first, you know, so it's like this rich tapestry of different immigrant groups. And I just love that right now, the Latino community it's kind of like we're going into this new phase where we're the new wave of immigration, and we're able to see the richness of immigration. You know, we're able to see what happens when you foster diversity and the beauty that comes from it. So, like, when we hear this anti-immigrant rhetoric that we hear from like Donald Trump and others, we have the honor of living the fact that what they're saying is BS, right? Like, we see it every day, right? We don't even have to entertain the argument because we see the beauty of immigration in Lawrence. And so we're seeing it today, but we also see it by looking at the history of Lawrence, right? First came the Irish, then came the French Canadians, then the Italians, and all these different groups. And so each group kind of makes continues to make Lawrence this beautiful place. And we see the richness of diversity through that. I just want to say before I go, this is a history event. We're kind of like centered in history. 1999, does anybody know why 1999 was a very important year for Lawrence?
Y2K.
Yeah, I was
It's not Y2K. I want to, this has a lot to do with history. This is really important. Anybody? Historians. 1999, what happened? Something happened in the courts. There's your hint.
Were you born?
Jess Sanders, do you know?
Was it redistricting?
Redistricting, right? Because of the, so there was a lawsuit through the federal courts that mandated that the city, it was a lawsuit against the city through the Voting Rights Act, I believe, that mandated that the city redistrict so that Latinos can actually elect representatives into the government. So that was in 1999. And I think, we're talking about history, I think that should be something that everybody knows and that people celebrate, because that was, you know, that was a landmark situation for us. And so now, I feel like things like Glippen we're finally seeing the result of that court decision. Because that emancipation, right? As soon as people were able to vote for their elected officials and the Latino community was able to get representation in local government, you know, it takes a long time, but by 2009 you have a young professionals network in the city, right? I think, you know, and I'm looking at things from a historical lens, I really do think that these things are connected. So, I'll finish up by saying that I'm glad that Glippen has been able to contribute to the quilt of the tapestry that is the history of Lawrence, and I just want to say that the history, that's the history that brings different groups together. I think that's why we have to remember it, okay? And I'm going to go ask, was it Josh second? Yes. Josh is going to say a couple words. Thank you.
Where's my cousin? Yay! No, he is. Put the applause, you know. Yeah, no, so Quinn pulled me into Glippen way back when, and I remember like we were having conversations in my mother's basement about like Lawrence and like what to do, and just bringing friends over, like, you know, what are we gonna do, and like who are we, like trying to, like, just young teenagers chilling, drinking, smoking, doing our thing, you know what I mean? But like trying to figure out life, right? Trying to figure out. I'm just trying to be real. I'm the only non-college educated one in the group, so represent, right? Read books, libraries. But no, it's really fascinating because being active, being an activist, being a leftist in the community for such a long time, having my start at LCW, back when Bill Traynor was the executive director, and Alma and all these other people were there. Jess was, of course, there since the beginning as well. And then, you know, interestingly enough, I went to LCW because I needed to do community service, because I got in trouble. I was a bad kid. And I'm just like, yo, you know, Alma, I need to do these things. I was talking to Jessica Filion, and I was like, I got to do some hours. I'm like, I joined Movement City. And then I was just like in this weird in-between age that I think still exists for a lot of kids today, where there's like not a lot of services for like 16 to 24-year-old people. And I think that's when a lot of people get lost, right? And LCW and Alma and what was her name? Mariana? I think it was, right? Yeah. Took me under their wing to like start organizing and doing all these like redevelopment, real estate development, charrettes and stuff like that. And then they put me on through the Poder Institute to Bread and Roses, two of my mentors over there since like 2007, Linda and Jim. And that's where I really kind of got this whole idea that, like, you know, social justice, immigration, stories of our past, racism, right? Workers, a class analysis of what's going on in the world, right? And then figuring out that we had to speak up for ourselves, right? And then Glippen came along, and my cousin pulled me in, remembering these conversations that we were having, and we were just like, yo, like, we gotta talk about what we're going through, and we gotta talk about what opportunities we could create for each other, and like, let's just network. And I was just like, word, like, let's make that happen. This is as grassroots as it could get, right? And so I guess I just want to say that I've appreciated both of your work. I ran against Francina for the presidency and she won. Congratulations. Wow, that was awesome. That's fantastic. I mean that. And I just learned a lot from their leadership and experience outside of Lawrence, because I'm one of the people that haven't had the opportunity to really go outside of Lawrence and really experience like the fullness of the rest of the world, except for by the internet, you know what I mean? It's great. And then like just networking with them constantly and doing stuff with the community in the perspective that they were offering was really enriching and really allowed me to come into my own and really allow myself to stand out and form my own identity. And so I guess, you know, I want to just say thanks to everybody here, to the History Center. I think like being part of Bread and Roses, especially having these conversations in this like super conservative, pro-restrictionist, racist kind of era we're in, economic decline, climate decline, you know, global decline, the whole threat, you know what I mean? The lingo, the education, the connections that I've made here through GLPN, through all the other organizations, through the other awardees, have really allowed, and for myself and I think my colleagues here, to be in this position as older millennials, to really literally be building those bridges with a narrative that works for both sides, or for all sides. And I think sometimes like we get caught up and we get like triggered and we get really pissed off and we want to flip tables, and that's all well and good and we have the right to do that. But I believe like you brought up on, you were stealing all my good lines, by the way. Great person. Yeah. Reading Lionel Barba's book, leveraging that history to our benefit, to the common worker struggle, and just going more foundational and like going beyond the racial, racist, xenophobic, you know, sexist narrative really just takes the cake, because like we're all being screwed. We're all being screwed. And I think we're realizing that. I think the Latinos in the community, myself included, are coming into fuller, matured political integration. And I think it's just fascinating to be a part of that. And so thank you, I guess, for recognizing that.
I promise I'll be back. You guys did well. Well, first and foremost, I just want to thank my former colleagues and my former board members at the History Center. You definitely were an amazing and integral part of my life. And I also want to thank the new leaders of GLPN, because honestly, we are the history and you are the next generation, and you're what's really leading this organization forward. So I deeply want to thank you. And I'm sure that everybody here standing thanks you as well. So thank you for the work that you're doing for the community and for the organization. I see this opportunity as something that's coming full circle. So I started with GLPN. I actually found them on Facebook back in 2009 when Facebook was still cool. And it was my senior year, and as many of the people who have spoken before me, it was a year where I was very confused and was not sure about my next steps. Would I come back to the city that made me, or would I move forward and get out like we are told to do once we become professionals? So I definitely made the decision to come back, and I am so happy that I did, because it allowed me to be a part of an organization that is not just creating networking events and trying to bring talent to the classroom through resume workshops, but it's really focusing on inclusivity and bringing forth the members of the community who we may not consider to be professionals, who are the bodega owners, the people who are working in the factories but are still young, and you're like, you know, you can get that GED and you can also be part of this group. So I truly am grateful that Glippen has been made up of people who have leadership, who have passion, but who have a sense of self, and who always bring their true self, not only to the podium when they're receiving an award, but also to the work that they do on a daily basis. I honestly cannot thank the people in this room enough. Once again, the History Center, because my work with Glippen started because of the work that I did with you and the Bread and Roses and Centennial translation, so I truly thank you, and I really look forward to the next generation of leaders, people that you're going to continue to inspire, and the people who you have inspired amongst your spaces. So thank you so much and have a great evening.
I guess I'm last. Well, thank you, History Center, for this honor. I think, you know, I wish that those of us that were around when we first started the organization would be here today. But as Quinn said, a lot of us are all across the state. Some of them are even in different places in the country. I will say, when we first started, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but it was quite a while ago. It started essentially as an idea, and it was an idea that was formed in Salem State. I think I was getting some award, and Quinn had just graduated college, and he was within the program, and Eartha was a senior in high school, which as I thought about it, I'm like, wow, I'm really old. But you know, she was around there too, and we had a conversation, and the conversation was, what's missing in Lawrence? What makes us, you know, there was a sense of emptiness that we had, because when we were there, we couldn't necessarily connect with other individuals that had similar experience to us. And we decided to get something going, and in part because, you know, there's this thing where sometimes apathy, even though you might go to college, you might do all this other stuff, and you might think of yourself as successful, but there's a sense of apathy that I think was taught within Lawrence. And I remember when I was having conversations with Quinn, I kept saying, like, well, I don't know if we could do it. And Quinn was like, you could do it. I'm like, well, I'm not going to do it alone. You have to do it with me. And that's how I started, and we were able to attract a lot of other young people with similar mindset. But I remember what I kept being told was, Pavel, you're wasting your time. Pavel, there are no young professionals in Lawrence. And what we would talk amongst the group is, hey, maybe this experiment will fail, but we should at least get something going, and then someone else can pick it up. So I remember we did, the first event that we did was the resume workshop, and at that moment we had 20-something young people that after we did the event, we went to the Clada and we had drinks, and it was this feeling of like you're connecting with other folks, and you know, I remember the members were saying, wow, I've never felt like this before. And the next event that we did was a networking event, and I will tell you, I was a little worried about that event because, you know, this idea where people are like, you know, there's no young professionals in Lawrence, and it comes to a point where you're like, wow, what if they're right? You know, or like you know that they're out there, what if they don't come to the event? And we were, what was amazing, what started the organization, we had just so many amazing people working there. And Janeda, you took like half of what I was going to say, because a lot of them were the women. You know, we had you know, the Shara, Patty, Laura, and many more individuals that, you know, Patty was leading up that event. So those of you that know Patty know that whatever she does is going to be incredible. So we ended up getting that night, our first networking event, we had around like 70 to 80 young professionals, and that was incredible. And the folks that saw that were just so surprised at that. And you know, the great thing is that it kept going, and it kept going because of the energy within the people that were within the group. You know, you're there and you're feeding off that energy. And flash forward a year and a half later, we're in a room, there's Kay and Chet Seidel, and you know, they're talking to us about the importance of Glippen and how, you know, this generation will be able to pick up on their work. And that kind of got me thinking. I was like, oh wow, and it was such a an incredible feeling. To me that was sort of like my Dengler Award, because you had individuals that you've seen out there working so much for the community, telling you and being like, I respect you for the work that you're doing. And one of the things that we look at is the individuals within the board and outside the board that helped us, put this together. So, big thanks to Jessica Anders and Nelson Bouteng from Lawrence Community Works. That there was a time when we were functioning, it was all out of pocket. Everything that we did, it was me putting 20 bucks in, everybody putting money in, but we had no way to fundraise. Like, how do you start up a bank account? And as we went throughout, trying to figure out what we were going to do, I remember we met with Nelson and Jess, and they were essentially just like, we got you, we're going to help you out. And that's what helped sort of stabilize us. So it wasn't just the individuals that helped founded the group, it was the folks outside of our organization that understood the importance of it and helped us grow. Moving forward, we have a new generation of leaders, and one of the things that we're definitely looking for is more individuals to join the board. Starting in September, they usually meet and create their calendar of events. So those of you that are here and are interested in ensuring that an organization like this keeps going, this is what you have to do. You have to find other young professionals that you think are passionate, other young professionals that you think that if they were in this type of environment, they would shine, and make sure that we know about them. So that way they can be connected, they can join the organization, and they can keep it going year after year after year. I extremely have a lot of value to this award. I'm very grateful, and thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Congratulations to all of Glippen. That does conclude our program. I would encourage all of us, first of all, thank you for coming, but we can all move out for coffee and dessert out into the courtyard. Again, have a good evening.